What up guys, it's Jules here for What Culture Wrestling with another episode of the most insane things happening in wrestling this week. Now, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get on with that title sequence. You're strong, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're the irresistible force. No, this isn't what my mum tells me before work every day, but actually the words between Alexa Bliss to Nia Jax. The praise was lavished out to try and get Nia on Bliss's side to help her against the rampaging body counter that is Asuka. Yet, she left one thing off that list, and for good reason. She never said that Nia was good at acting. I say this because whether blunder or sheer idiocy on behalf of the writers, Nia Jax said that Asuka doesn't speak English. Excuse me? Yes, she f***ing does, mate. And you've wrestled her before at a takeover event for NXT, and the match was actually half decent, so that probably meant that she was calling half the shots to you, so yes, she definitely does. And you know this, you big silly. I know it's just a small thing, but it raises a possible issue. Is the WWE gonna turn Asuka into a mute hero? I hope they don't, just because of the fact that she's foreign, but I and millions of other people watching definitely were like, oh dear, this could be a thing. Now, Kevin Dunn has been with the WWE since the mid-80s, and clearly over this time he's grown bored with the concept of wrestling. Now that he's the Executive Vice President of Television Production, aka what we call here at WhatCulture.com, the top editing pig, aka Phil, you're strong, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're the irresistible force. Feel free to use that. He's now in charge of all the cuts and angles we see on both brands. Yet this week on Raw, Dunn seemed to have had a seizure of some sorts, because when Roman Reigns was beating down Finn Balor in the corner, in the span of 15 seconds, there were 12 cuts. Twitter user Aguirre_Eric pointed the whole thing out, and if you actually watch it, it's every single time Reigns brings his fist back and goes in again, it cuts to different sides of the ring. It's quite motion sickness inducing. And it's also really weird because no one else seemed to be receiving this type of lavish action movie star treatment. It's not a good look, and it leads me to the obvious joke that if they carry on this way, then the WWE will be killed by 1,000 little cuts. You are welcome. Now, this entry is just actually quite nice, as it allows me to celebrate one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. This week, the Wrestling Observer newsletter gave Chris Jericho his first ever 5-star rating, making him one of the oldest wrestlers to achieve this at the age of 47. And when you think of the work that he's put into this business and what it's taken out of him, you would have expected him to achieve this a lot earlier in his 28-year run. But it's clear that his short yet impactful run with New Japan Pro Wrestling is full of fire and energy we've not seen in a long time, and it's putting him on a lot of people's radar. This is a guy who managed to get over a jacket, a list, and countless other wrestlers, but it's here that we're seeing a renaissance for good old-fashioned wrestling, which is, after all, what he is fantastic at. Ultimately, Jericho, in the span of 2 months, has finally cashed in on 28 years of what he was trying to preach. He can now legitimately call himself the best at what he does. Okay, so a bit of a controversial opinion here. Is woken Matt Hardy working as well as it could be? This might just be me, obviously, but the current iteration of Matt Hardy does seem a bit wonky, but not in the right way. True, the man does seem to love a good laugh, and he's found a giggling buddy in the form of Bray Wyatt, but doesn't this just seem a little bit tame to what we've already seen before? This guy's meant to be some sort of interdimensional deity of weirdness, yet maybe because we've seen him so much as version 1 Matt Hardy before the change, it just isn't sitting as well as we'd like. The crowds aren't too sure either, because during his segments there is laughter, but just not the sort of fan response that there was. Either it's too weird or not weird enough for fans, and there doesn't seem to be a middle ground. You either have to go full into this sort of thing or not bother at all. Then again, it might be down to the WWE themselves. I mean, I know that they've said that they've given the character rights to Matt and he can do whatever he wants with them, but don't you find it a bit weird that he's only pushing the laughing aspect? that does seem like there has been some creative constrictions on it. Simply put, there's more to this character than laughing and standing around, yet we're not really seeing it at the moment. Here's hoping that he can capitalize on it, but as it stands, woken Matt Hardy might already be a bit broken. Since Road Dogg Jesse James started helping out Ryan Ward, the creative writer for SmackDown, we've seen the Blue brand go from a quite different and well-written episodic weekly show to sometimes being a pale imitation of Raw. And the worrying thing is, it seems like this has been intentional. The Riott Squad is basically absolution. Matches repeat themselves and promos ape each other, and this week on SmackDown, a shock victory ended up being exactly what we'd seen on Raw. On Raw, Titus Worldwide beat the Bar in a shock upset victory, which is hopefully leading to a triple threat match at the Royal Rumble for logic's sake, if nothing else. Yet just 24 hours later on SmackDown, Breezango got a shock upset victory on Rusev Day, which is what we're calling Aiden in English and Rusev, obviously. But it didn't feel like a shock. It just felt like deja vu, and then we were like, well, we have definitely seen this before. It took all of the emotional storytelling right out from underneath it. Now, behind the scenes, Vince is still the man who approves all of the scripts, and ever since he put Road Dogg with Ryan Ward, we've seen the man who shaped NXT story-wise turn into just another cog in the machine. Oh, you didn't know? Well, Vince called and he said, keep it the same. And those were the most insane things happening in wrestling this week. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below, and as always, I will end out the video reading my favorite comment from last week. Gold is measured in Troy pounds, and knowing that gold dust is billed at £232 on the Avoir du Poids system, in Troy pounds, he's only a bit over £190, meaning that he would qualify for the Cruiserweight division. Thanks. The more you know. And there we have it. All that's left for me to say is thank you to Michael Sidgwick and Phil Chambers for their continued work on the show, and for you for watching. As always, I've been Jules, you've been awesome, and I'll speak to you soon.
So, thanks for watching. Please feel free to click on any of these things around my head, or something terrible might happen to the dog. Too sweet me, bro. Traitor. Traitor.